Hi, Caroline Kearney here at Powell Arts, and I'm sitting with the wonderful, the magnificent Rhonda Babb in front of her piece, which will be in our It Is Written show, which will be from now through October 29th. That was a close one. October 29th with a preview during the Collingswood Fine Arts and Crafts Festival, which is August 19th and 20th. It was a mouthful. But Rhonda, would you mind introducing us to your piece?
Sure. This is my piece, Every Damn Day is the name of the piece. Really, the work that I do is very much influenced by climate change issues. And as somebody that's been in that space for a while, I get kind of frustrated around April 22nd because it seems to be the only day of the year that we're talking about the earth and the environment.
It's like the ultimate day for like greenwashing.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, for me, I wanted to, just sort of shout out on paper through my artwork and say, you know what, every day should be about the earth that we live on. It's the only place we have. So,
we don't have a plan B.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we really need to do everything we can.
Yeah.
So that's where the main part of this came from. And then the other part, maybe not easily seen on camera, but the part at the top, there's a lot of writing at the top of this piece. And that's actually a poem that was done by a street poet in New Orleans.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah, so my family and I, we did a long weekend in New Orleans, and we were walking down one of the streets by all the jazz clubs, and there was this guy with a typewriter, and he was just hanging out, and my brother started talking to him. And, I kept walking, and he said, hey, Rhonda, give me a topic for a poem.
That's so cool.
I'm like, hope, of course. Like, it has to be
because
about hope.
Rhonda, the hope symbol.
Right.
We'll tag that.
Exactly. So it had to be about hope. So, this guy just sat there, and he was very focused, and he almost looked like Schroeder playing piano in a Peanuts cartoon. And he just started typing. And we just stood there, and I was, talking to people were gathering around and watching him work, and he was just so intent, looking at his typewriter and typing away. And then about maybe 15 minutes later, he pulls this leaf of paper out, he signs it, and he hands it over. My brother, of course, paid him for his work. And it's just this amazing poem about hope.
Which hopefully you can see on here. You'll definitely be able to get a good view of it on our website. But most importantly, you should come in and take a look at it because it really speaks to each other. We were talking about earlier about how, first of all, we're going to talk about your hope symbol in a second, but we were talking about how essentially you have to have hope to kind of fuel all of these big problems that we have, because if you don't have hope, you don't have a reason to solve the problem, and you'll just give up. And that's not what we're looking for.
No, we need everybody to have hope, I think, because you're right. It's about these future generations. It's not just about us today, although we are experiencing a lot of things right now, especially this summer, with all the stuff that's going on.
Well, especially in New Orleans, where you were, they've been experiencing it for years because they're below sea level.
Right, and it's an interesting tie-in because New Orleans and Hurricane Katrina was really where I started my sustainability journey. Back in 2005,
because I don't think any of us had ever seen anything like that. We've seen bad storms, but like
nothing. Nothing like that.
Yeah.
And people started sort of putting two and two together about why that storm was so fierce.
Yeah.
And around the same time, Al Gore did his Inconvenient Truth, and
everybody did truly find it inconvenient, and now they're like, Al Gore was right.
Yeah, exactly. So,
well, most people.
Well, yeah.
Probably the people watching this video.
Probably.
Unless you're hate watching it, and then you should turn it off.
Exactly. So that's, it's interesting that this poem came from New Orleans because of that. And this was like a decade later that I was in New Orleans, and it was the first time visiting. And then, so what I did was I was able to scan in that poem and create a screen out of it, and made the screen that's on top of the Earth Day message that's on here.
And we were talking about your process because I believe you said you start with digital and then you move to analog,
I do.
which is the ultimate flex in these digital times, I think.
Yes.
Can you talk about how you got into that process and into screen printing?
Absolutely. So I actually have done graphic design, marketing, and branding for decades, and that was really the field I was in. And I, during COVID, was looking for something to keep myself busy, as we all were. We all, I think, picked up all these sort of different hobbies and things that we were doing. So I gravitated to screen printing because it was a process that I was really fascinated by, but was never had time to learn.
Yeah.
So I learned how to screen print, and I did a virtual course online, and then went into the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts when we could, and then started taking the class in real life.
Yeah, that's so awesome.
Yeah. So I really fell in love with it, and because I've worked. I learned how to use the computer very early on in my career. So everything is sort of native digital to me. I actually start thinking in, Adobe Illustrator, and that's where I build things out. But then with the screen printing process, I'm actually able to sort of separate things out and then create the screens. And then it becomes a very analog process. Then it's all using my hands.
Which I think is really interesting because part of what we're going to have to do to solve climate change and a lot of the problems we have is to get back hands-on and move away from automation, which even though we're putting everything into the computer, it's still, it's still, the computer's doing some of that work for us.
Exactly. The computer isn't just a tool, and that's how I view it. It's just another part of my arsenal.
Yeah.
And then, the ability to sort of, the whole making of a screen print to me is a very technical process. There's a lot of variables. You have to get things right. They don't always work. There's, and it sort of takes the perfectionism that I sort of already, I'm a Virgo, so, I'm sort of born perfection.
I once had, I was recording an album and the person who was mixing it said to me, well, we don't want you to sound like a robot, Caroline. And I said, Adam, that's hilarious that you would think I wouldn't want to sound like a robot. What could be more perfect at doing something than a robot? Since I've started to lean into the artifacts that make it human.
Right.
But when I was younger, I was like, but this will polish it, it'll make it perfect.
Right.
But I think that part of what we have to do when we're opening ourselves up to these problems is get back to an elemental human level.
Exactly.
And you're doing that with the analog printing. Right. The secret key into it is that it's human.
Yes.
So.
It is. I love that sometimes it doesn't go the way you expect.
Yeah.
But
which sometimes ends up being awful, but sometimes ends up being a good thing.
I love the sort of way that the screen print looks. And that sometimes you do get that little, misregistration or that little blob of ink, and that makes it, as you said, more human and more real.
It's a happy accident.
Exactly.
As like Bob Ross would say.
Exactly.
So.
Exactly.
We were also talking about how I love that it has this kind of activist bent, and that really fits with this idea of printing because it has its roots in the protest movement. And I know that you did graduate program in branding specifically on the hope symbol, which was based on the peace symbol, which what's cool about that is it's a protest symbol. It's also a symbol that's a shorthand for a hope and ideology and things like that.
Exactly.
So can you tell us a little bit about the hope symbol?
Sure. So as you said, that was, I did a graduate program that I graduated in 2010 from that program. And, I was, how can I take this branding, marketing, all this stuff and apply it to sustainability? And I was looking at different case studies and trying to wrap my head around, okay, could I create some kind of symbol, logo, brand around sustainability and the green movement and all of that? And I found the story of the peace symbol, and I found that origin story of the peace symbol so very compelling. It was designed originally in the late 50s as the symbol for nuclear disarmament.
Yeah.
And it's become this ubiquitous thing. When you see it, and it's even in my pieces now, everybody goes, oh,
it's a shorthand for
exactly.
a value that all of us are trying to take on and embody.
Exactly. And all of these movements from 1958 when it was developed through to today have all sort of borrowed and appropriated the peace symbol for you know, the anti-war movement, the women's rights movement, all these movements
Mhm.
throughout, you know, especially the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh my gosh, that, you know, made so much sense to me. And I'm like, we need a symbol for today, for the 21st century.
Yeah, because peace is a ever going process.
Mhm.
But it works in tandem with hope, because if you don't, like as we were saying, if
Right.
you don't have hope, you're never going to move forward.
Exactly.
So
I'm like, okay, so, you know, there's hope and despair. Well, if we were living in despair and thinking we couldn't take actions that would make any difference, then we wouldn't do anything.
we wouldn't do anything, the conversation would be over.
Right.
And also if the conversation's over,
Mhm.
where are we even going from there?
Exactly. And
So are we just biding our time? Like,
yeah, we'll just, you know.
so I love the idea of the hope symbol, and we're gonna link to it right here. We'll put like your website on it, and but I think it's so great, and I can't wait for people to see your work. I think that it's energetic. It's got a really beautiful ideology and theme. It's graphic design. It's also glorious.
Thank
So
you.
we really hope that you will come out and see Rhonda's work in our It Is Written show from now through October 29th. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate being part of the show. I'm so excited.
We're so excited too. And she has 3 pieces in the show. They're all amazing. Maybe I'll pop them up right here and then close it out. So thank you so much.
Thank you.